Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar on how to modernize and secure your IT monitoring with AIOps. Today's webinar is being presented by YASH Technologies and ScienceLogic. Before I give the floor to our speakers, I would like to give a few house rules and for the audience. We'll be able to, today's webinar is actually being recorded and we'll be able to share the link with you after it is done. And we welcome everyone to actually put your questions in the questions panel, which you see on the screen, so that we can take it up when the speakers are free or at the end of the session. At this time, I'm going to hand the floor over to our speaker, Mr. Peter. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rahul. I appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We have a global audience today. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us your time. I do appreciate it. My name is Peter Luff with ScienceLogic, and I'm joined today by Rakesh Kumar Jain, who is Vice President of Managed Services at YASH Technologies. I'm very glad to have Rakesh here bringing us his experience. My role at ScienceLogic is to work as a Senior Director in MSP Solutions. I work with our service providers to help them build managed services around our product line. So we're both very glad to be with you today, and hopefully we have a packed webinar full of good information. So I'm going to start off just really looking at your own situation and just see if we can understand exactly where everybody is. And we'll pose some questions. What describes your situation the best? Are you concerned about the security of your monitoring platform, that it could impact your overall security? Definitely, that's been an issue for a number of our enterprise customers. Are you unable to identify business service impacts that happens due to IT issues? Certainly, when faults happen in an IT environment, it's sometimes difficult to prioritize which faults to work on first, according to the impact they might have on the business. That's an interesting and increasingly difficult area for IT teams to isolate. Thirdly, are the legacy IT operations management tools that you have slowing you down, slowing down your digital transformation initiatives with visibility, efficiency, and agility that you need to do business in the digital era? That's certainly something that Forrester has studied and looked at and found that some of the older legacy operations tools and monitoring systems are really slowing down our ability to execute on digital transformation initiatives. Is mean time to repair higher due to multiple alerts from different elements and tools? Very often our organizations are becoming snowed on with events and alerts, and it's very difficult to sort them and correlate them, and event correlation is a big topic in and of itself. Beyond the scope of today's webinar, but certainly a big question that needs to be addressed. And then finally, is siloed monitoring really impacting your overall operational resiliency and efficiency? We see so many organizations with multiple tools, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, struggling to stay resilient and struggling to build consistent processes as a result. So if we go back and think about when we first started our monitoring journey, and for some of you that have been in the business a long time, it might be longer than me, this could take us back 10, 15, 20 years or more. And there's some really old software out there. And so the monitoring journey probably began with good old network and server monitoring. And some of these tools that many organizations are using today began life, perhaps in the 1990s, as an original network or server monitoring suite. And that software has been out there for a long time. Some of them are big legacy platforms, but they've lasted a long while. But they struggle to be upgraded. And so what we maybe happened after a little while, after network and server monitoring was established, we started to add some storage tools as well. We want to monitor our storage. Well, NetApp, EMC, those players, they have their own vendor-specific storage monitoring tools, and they got added into the mix. When we got into the 90s, we had a wave of virtualization and software-defined everything, software-defined data center in particular. And those systems came with their own monitoring tools. So VMware introduced its own tools for the VMware environment, Microsoft for the Hyper-V environment, and so on. And software-defined systems may come with their own management tools of some kind, and that got added into the mix. Beyond that, we decided to extend our monitoring visibility into IP telephony, unified communications, and so on. And so you see this continues with more specific tools for those environments. And then, of course, the world started to shift towards the cloud. And so we have cloud upon cloud and multi-cloud environments, each coming with their own vendor-specific, cloud-specific tool sets like AWS CloudWatch, etc. And then finally, we have an era of containers and microservices to deal with, and these also come with their own tools. And so it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that you could easily have 6 to 10 or even more monitoring tools and systems of various different kinds. And that throws up all kinds of problems in terms of the operational support processes that you put around them. And it frankly makes it much more difficult to do your job. And we end up with a situation like this where we have too many tools that are hard to upgrade. As we mentioned, some of these legacy tools have been around for a while. They don't have strong APIs, they don't have APIs. It means that it makes it hard for us to get data out and give top management the information that they might need. It makes it very hard for us to prioritize incidents to the right service when it's not clear whether the events are coming from service affecting devices or not. When I have my data spread across 6, 10, 12 databases, it's really difficult to automate. And to automate the flow of incidents into my service management systems when I've got multiple tools and multiple data sources, automation becomes extremely difficult, and it can cause more problems than it solves. If I'm working with 6, 10, 12 tools, I've got 6, 10, 12 different operational processes to work with, and it's just too hard to scale my business. And I'm tying up too many staff on relatively low-level monitoring issues when I really should be using them for much more strategic initiatives. Some of the other problems that get thrown into the mix here, I've got an inaccurate CMDB because the tools I'm providing information from different tool sets into one CMDB, but the data's not synchronized, it's not up to date. I have too many incidents coming from too many places. I may have a manual ticketing process, and so all of my tickets are created and entered manually, and then they get routed to the wrong place, and so I get a slower response to problem solving. We talked about lack of service visibility. We have a very lack of clarity around the root cause of a particular problem. We all go huddling into the war room and see who's the innocent one. The first one who can prove he's innocent can leave the room. But an awful lot of time and effort is tied up in these war room huddles where my root cause of a problem is unclear. And then, of course, I have a very fragmented tool strategy. In fact, I don't have a tool strategy. I just have a bunch of tools. And so we have this situation, too many tools, too much data, no information. And then guess what? My go-to tool set just got hacked with a massive security breach. And so this is a very common environment that we're seeing, this backdrop of many tools, and then suddenly we have this major sunburst alert with the recent breaches that were very high profile. And now I have a massive security breach on my hands, and I need to make a change. I need to make a change to my tool sets, but I'm doing it at a really bad time because I've got all these other issues going on. So when that happens, I'm faced with a choice. I'm faced with some insecure monitoring tools. So what am I going to do? Well, I can do one of two things. First of all, I could just simply replace that monitoring tool that has been deemed insecure and replace that with an equivalent. And that might be that I try and find something that's very similar and do a like-for-like replacement of that particular tool set. And many of those were network-centric tools, and so I could find another network-centric tool and replace. But that doesn't solve the broader problem that we just outlined of this tools proliferation that we've got going on. And so replacing, I don't think necessarily on its own really solves the problem. What's really needed is to modernize the IT tool set, the IT operational tool set, to suit today's modern environment, hybrid cloud and an AIOps approach, to provide a much more realistic, to give me a much more realistic opportunity to solve some of those problems. So if you go back and think about when you last upgraded your monitoring tool set, it could have been a while back. So you have the opportunity to benefit from newer coverage tools that provide multi-cloud and hybrid coverage. They deal with containers, microservices. the software-defined data center or the software-defined wide area network. Hyper-converged infrastructure, these are devices that can be very difficult to monitor. All of these environments are problematic for traditional monitoring systems, but the newer AIOps generation can deal with these. Likewise, in terms of pure technology coverage, there's certain functionality that I might need to upgrade too. And so the monitoring functionality, there's some new things here that perhaps your original old tool set doesn't do. For example, automating the process of discovery and identifying devices. So I don't just get a list of IP addresses when I've discovered things. I find that I've got these routers, these switches, these servers, these Windows boxes, etc. And I've automatically discovered and classified my device sets. I can map the relationships between them so that I show not only a topology map, but a relationship map that shows this virtual machine is mounted to that storage, for example. I can automate the flow of incidents into my service management system, like a ServiceNow or a Remedy or a Showell, and make sure that tickets get routed to the right resolver groups, as opposed to having tickets bounce around, or worse still, be created manually. I can also synchronize my CMDB to the latest monitoring conditions and make sure that my CMDB is actually up to date, fully synchronized and deduplicated, so that my CMDB contains accurate information about the CIs that are contained in it. I can automate the fault triage so that I can start gathering diagnostic information at the time of the fault and avoid the need for technicians to do that themselves manually. So taking out, again, making it easier for my technicians to do business and saving them time. I would love to get some business service visibility. Try getting that out of some of these legacy tools to get a view of the business services that I'm running, how they're constructed, and how healthy they are, or how healthy they are not. And then finally, I need a platform that's secure and certified, such that I can trust that it's not going to open up security vulnerabilities and cause more problems than it solves. So really, it really is time to move on. The approach that we're recommending is an AIOps-based monitoring and automation approach. And the value that we can bring here is to provide not only full estate coverage, covering all of the tools and all of the technologies so that you can actually consolidate and remove some of the older tools, but provide a secure platform. And the platform that YASH uses from ScienceLogic has been certified by the Department of Defense, for example, as suitable for deployment on defense networks. And that's a very high level of security classification that we've spent a long time to achieve at ScienceLogic. Hybrid cloud and data center visibility is key. We do believe that the world will not go cloud as quickly as the trade press might have you believe, but the hybrid environment will exist for quite some time. And we believe that it's really necessary to introduce a lot of automation, which has a direct impact on your operational expense and on MTTR, which impacts your customer's experience or your user experience that you deliver as an IT organization. So there's a lot of value in an AIOps-based approach. And we can provide all of this in a managed service that YASH delivers. And so YASH is delivering an integrated AIOps platform from ScienceLogic, an intelligent business services management offering that YASH will deliver on top of that platform, backed by their hyper-converged tools team, support team, that is available on a 365, 24/7 basis, all in with the flexibility of a managed service coming from YASH. And with that, I'm going to turn it across to Rakesh to tell you a little bit more about that managed service also. Rakesh.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter, for this insight. Now, let's look at how do we achieve that, right? So he gave you about the value proposition. He talked about how the legacy tools can be moved to the newer set of tools, right? So if I talk about that, so the challenges which we have discussed so far, which is the siloed monitoring, the end-to-end performance monitoring, the reactive incident management, which we typically see, the ineffective change management, and we'll talk about that, what I mean when I say ineffective change management, the problem management, status reporting, the decreasing operational efficiency, and the single source of truth, which is not available, right? So these are most of the challenges which we address through our integrated business services monitoring as a service, which we offer to our customers, right? Now, how does it all comes together? So if you see how you can establish the visibility across the platform. So if you look at this, these are different infrastructure stack, the users, the application performance tools, or the APIs, cloud services, different event sources, maybe because in some cases you are still tied to your native tools, like storage native tool maybe, or maybe the database native tool. However, the platform takes care of everything on its own without any native tool utilization, and different data sources get plugged, right? Now, the way it happens is that all this put together, it does an automated discovery of all the elements in your environment and creates a business service map. So maybe for an organization, maybe a manufacturing customer, or maybe for a banking customer. So let's take an example of card payment. So let's assume that's a business service sitting top here. And then what are the components associated with that card payments business service? What are the underneath servers, the underlying infrastructure components like routers, switches, the database, the storage, and all that, right? Now, once you get that all pieced together, so once you see any impact coming into your environment, maybe if there is some impact here or in this area or any of the database area, so this business service map allows you to understand the impact of making a change, first of all, right? Because most of the situations, the teams in a war room situation, they struggle that if I change this, what would be the impact on the other side, right? Similarly, if your systems are up to date and your integrations and the service maps are up to date, it helps you to maintain compliance and approach the audits also, because in a way, it gives you clear visibility that where are the issues, right? And if I move a step further, how does the AIOps help in this entire journey, right? So if you look at different operation sources like we talked about, the AIOps enables you to do the event correlation using machine learning. If I bring a classic example of, you can say, a server or an application slowness issue, or a server going down, or maybe a switch going down. So in a typical environment where you have different tools for your server, for your network, for your storage and everything, anything associated to that particular switch will start throwing multiple alerts. Now, that you would encounter a situation where you would have multiple P1s or P2s, and the team kind of struggles in terms of finding where the root cause or where the actual problem is. What is the real issue? Whether it's the switch issue, whether it's the server issue, it takes a little while, right? And if it's a P1 situation and your business is getting impacted, and it has most of your business critical applications connected there, then it starts giving you problems. So how does AIOps and machine learning helps here? It kind of correlates all these events which are coming from these multiple directions and throws back the operational matrix in terms of what are the services which are impacted. Is it one business service? Is it multiple business services? The number of users which are impacted based on the applications which is being, or the applications which are being accessed. What are the applications which are impacted, and so forth, right? So all this comes together into a service health dashboard, which you foresee in terms of what is the impact, even if there is a issue. And there are other elements also when there are service degradation, right? Now, what happens in such situations, because even if your entire infrastructure is not down, but there is a performance issue or a service degradation issue. Now, what it does, the AIOps kind of starts creating baselines of the normal behavior of your application. The moment you see that there is a service degradation issue, it will start throwing an alert. And I'll talk about that maybe a little further when I take you to a blow up of the screen here. So once you realize there is service degradation and where that service degradation is, it becomes easier for you to kind of resolve those issues faster. So in a nutshell, if you look at it, what are the different outcomes using an AIOps-driven alerting insights and remediation platform? Because instead of having multiple P1s and P2s, you are having only a single P1 or P2 because they have been correlated here. And that's how you see a single ticket which is getting created in terms of P1 there. Now, since you have the services associated to that, you have the clear visibility, what are the users and applications impacted, it kind of reduces the mean time to restore or repair so that it becomes, the services can be brought up very fast, right? And the automated fault triage, so you can immediately trigger a lot of, you can say, automations to do the basic troubleshooting. You can enrich the incident ticket when you're automating the incidents and you're creating a ticket there. So the incident enrichment gives the visibility. There is no need for an L2, and there is no manual intervention required to, well, creating a ticket that what has gone wrong, right? And that's why we say automated fault triage and remediation. And similarly, when I talked about the service degradation, so since these elements which are shown here, like 75, high risk or something, that gives you a clear insight about the service degradation, and you can start working on that. Now, Peter, would you want to talk about this example, how this automation of the incident management helps?
Yes, thank you, Rakesh. Appreciate it. This is a real-world example from one of our customers who employed the ScienceLogic automated fault triage suite to help to reduce their ticket handling times, as you can see, quite dramatically. So the particular case was their telco circuit faults that they were dealing with, and they had a lot of them. And you can see that before automation, they were at about 2 hours, 20 minutes per incident. And after automation, they took that down to 38 minutes per incident by introducing this series of automations. And so the automations that we've written, they deal with a variety of network devices. They deal with Windows and Linux servers, VMware machines, and so on. And so in this case, these were primarily network devices. And the automations would basically collect diagnostic information at the scene of the crime. When the event comes in saying there's a problem, that event then triggers the collection of triage data. And as you can see, we were able to create and assign and enrich that ticket, populate the fields automatically, and then forward that into the customer's service management system. And so a 25-minute process got automated down to a single minute in several of these steps, as you can see. And all of this went down from a total of 2 hours 20 to 38 minutes. And so we're really excited about that. And they were obviously excited in terms of the time it saved them and the cost associated, because the labor that went with this was excruciatingly expensive. And across a couple of 100,000 incidents, they saved over $10 million in terms of the labor cost associated with that, because they were able to absolutely do more with less. They didn't need as many technicians to handle their ticket load. So quite a big impact on MTTR, service quality, and cost as a result of implementing this kind of automated incident flow and automated fault triage. Rakesh, back to you.
Thank you, Peter. That was quite insightful, and I think that explains how the automated triage, the ticket enrichment piece, which I was talking about in the previous slide, how it's enabled, right? Now, let's talk about the business service piece, which I was talking. So here, if you look at this screen capture, right? So there are different business services which are outlined primarily for a banking customer. So this is card payments. This is one of the business service. Then there is CRM, the business loans, teller, and other services which are kind of visible there. Now, if you can see very clearly, so there are a lot of greens all across, which means everything is healthy. And not only the service, but everything is green that way, right? Now, when we talk about card payments, let's take that example for a minute. So if you see this green box, so overall the business service health is available, business service is available, and that's where it shows green. But from a health perspective, if you look at it, there is a major issue, right? And similarly for this, maybe there is a minor issue. So that's how it gives you a clear visibility in terms of that there is a problem with cards. Now, if I go down, maybe the card payments, and maybe go to the next screen, so there it gives me a clear sunburst diagram, right? So now this is for the service risk analysis for that particular business service and associated components. So this is card payments. These are different elements under that, whether it's infrastructure or whether a particular service, right? So if you see there is the service is at 75% risk, though it is still available. And these are different sections where you see, and here is you can say services breakdown. So within the web, you can say services, card payment services, there are different subcomponents. You see card apps DCI, which is a 75%, the database is 100% fine, and this is the web services are a little bit at risk at a 75% level. So I think this is the kind of visibility, and this is what we are talking about. And this is the complete business service map, which I talked about in one of the previous slides here. Now, this is assuming this is your card payment, you can say business service. So these are components which are underneath that. So this is the VMware or vCenter. This is the database maybe, and these are the different versions here. So clear visibility and the different color coding. In the live environment, when you go and click on this, you will be able to drill down. So if you talk about, if you understand the root cause analysis mechanism, the 5 why approach, that's the different way of one of the ways of doing a root cause analysis for problem management. So it helps you going deep down once you start clicking, why this? Then you go further, it gives you why this, and then you go further, it maybe takes you to the real root cause or the problem. And that's what we are talking about when I talked about the challenges to be addressed by this platform, that problem management, status reporting, and inefficient change management. So now, even in this environment, if you're trying to make certain changes, that okay, once you keep drilling down, you know what are the relationships and what could go wrong if you're going to make some changes. Or even for making change, what are the elements you need to bring it together? So maybe you need to talk to the technical teams who are on the database side, bring them all into one place, and then maybe decide what changes. So the clear visibility about even the impact side gives you a good handle about managing the changes efficiently, right? Now, all this is the platform and the capabilities. Now let's look at what the services which are provided by the Intelligent Business Services team from YASH, right? So all the elements which are you can see on top, and then these are the services, the different users, network, applications, and all. Now, first and foremost, the 24/7 monitoring, 365 days, right? So what you can talk about the transaction monitoring, whether it's log and the usage pattern, service availability, and more. Going up to triaging and basic resolution. So whether it is automated in cases, whether it is manual in some cases, it can be covered end to end using our services there, where you talk about the SOP runbook-based resolution, false positive, alarm, ownership, and much, much more. Next is the trouble ticketing and escalations, right? So again, now that you have done the ticket enrichment, the automated ticket creation and all that, right? Now, how it has to be assigned to the relevant group, right? So that is also important, because if you have to reduce the MTTR, it has to be assigned to a right group. So that's where our team comes in play, where you do the ticket assignment, take the end-to-end ticket ownership for the status update and follow-up. If required, escalate it maybe to the next level and more. Again, on a housekeeping function, so all your infrastructure related, there may be whether it's a daily health check, log file maintenance and all, tools configuration and everything, that's also taken care by this team. And last but not the least, the reporting part of it. So this list is not an exhaustive list, as I said, because there are much more things which go behind this behind the scenes, or there are more activities which are done by this team. But the key message which you're trying to convey is that this team from YASH would be owning your complete monitoring and management part end to end to give you a clear visibility and bring you the best possible solution in terms of the resolution side. So in a nutshell, broad coverage for hybrid environments, real-time visibility and dashboards, cross-domain dependency mapping at the business service view, and the embedded automation. So these are some of the features which you get as part of the services. I'll hand it over back to my colleague, Peter, to take it on from here. Peter, over to you.
Thank you. All right. Sorry about that. So the value of managed business services to a business, this is a way that any IT organization can demonstrate real alignment to the business objectives of the company and deliver real business value. By managing the IT functions as a business service as opposed to a piece of technology. So by managing business services and as opposed to devices, for example, we can show a much greater ability to distinguish between problems that impact the business and problems that don't. We can provide that executive level overview to top management that shows how critical business functions are doing. How's my e-commerce platform doing? How is my CRM system doing? How is my customer service, customer-facing website? How are those things doing? How is the health, the availability, and the risk of that service looking in real time, as opposed to how is server number 4 doing, which the execs really don't care about. It gives us the ability to identify the impact of a particular fault on any of my critical services. So I know whether I need to put rapid attention to solving a specific problem. And finally, of course, I can then prioritize those problems according to the most important services. So whether they be customer affecting or employee affecting, user affecting, whether they affect the customer experience, whether they affect revenue, I can prioritize my problems solving according to those different criteria. Next slide. So we have several business outcomes that we can deliver when we're managing at this level. Managing, of course, the health and the performance of my critical business services is a key way of demonstrating value coming from an IT organization. I can improve the availability of those services to my customers and users, and I can improve the overall customer experience when I focus on the availability and performance of that service as opposed to device-centric IT. This gives me the ability to be much more agile in terms of the way that I support digital transformation initiatives of various kinds. And of course, it gives me the ability to reduce the impact of faults on the delivery of those critical services, maybe by spinning up additional capacity or heading off problems proactively. Of course, I can reduce the overall vulnerability that I've built up for myself in my tools chain and reduce my vulnerability to problems that I've inherited there, and reduce the overall costs associated with multiple tools. And finally, of course, I can reduce the MTTR that my customers and users experience on those critical business services. Next slide. Here are some business outcomes and some samples of results that some of our customers have achieved in the last year or so. There's some large organizations here. So from left to right, Telstra, a tier 1 carrier in the Pacific Rim area based in Australia. They eliminated all of their SLA rebates to customers as a result of more accurate SLA reporting in that particular case. In terms of a unified communication service, they were able to eliminate SLA rebates. In fact, they'd been paying rebates on a best effort basis, and they found that they were being too generous and they didn't need to make those rebates. General Dynamics, they saved 94%. They reduced their MTTR by 94%. They went from 12 hours down to 15 minutes, sorry, 4 hours down to 15 minutes in terms of MTTR. And they also, at the same time, they reduced the number of heads for monitoring from 12 heads down to 4 when they moved in ScienceLogic in place of an older legacy system. So there were real major cost savings to be had here. At Cisco, they saved over $14 million and reduced headcount by 1,000 in some of the very, very large accounts and very large global networks that they support as managed services. So Cisco had a major savings from automated fault triage that we talked about. And NetDesign is a smaller managed service provider in Europe. They were able to speed up their onboarding by 60% and reduce the number of SLA breaches also by 60%. At the same time, their IT operations expense went down by 21%. So they're achieving savings while improving the business at the same time, as opposed to one or the other. So a lot of these savings come together and they kind of reinforce. So we have some great business outcomes, and we'd love an opportunity to discuss the same kind of things with you in terms of ways that we can help to bring those kind of savings, those kind of business outcomes to your IT organization in conjunction with YASH. Do we have one more slide? Oh yes, of course. This is just an external validation of ScienceLogic as an AIOps industry leader. by various analysts. So EMA on the left, the EMA radar had us in the leaders category. Gartner in their 2021 market guide gives us a nice mention. They don't choose winners and losers, but they had us featured in there. And then the Forrester Wave, just at the end of 2020, Forrester updated their Forrester Wave and they had ScienceLogic in the leader category again. So we are in very good shape in our standing with the industry analysts. And we would encourage you to talk to the Forrester guys in particular about how they viewed the performance of ScienceLogic and the reasons why they voted us or they rated us there. These are not just paper ratings, these are the results of in-depth, hands-on demonstrations and experiments to validate the strategy and validate the veracity of the claims that we make. Final slide. Yeah, so in summary, with YASH, we have a strategic partner for managed services, providing very smart IT operations solution. The managed service gives us all kinds of flexibility, of course, and helps YASH align to the needs of your particular IT organization. YASH has great experience in delivering very large infrastructure programs on a global basis and getting involved in some of these IT transformation projects, specifically around digital transformation. Supported by ScienceLogic, the leader in AIOps-based monitoring and automation. Platform, the SL1 platform, is recognized by industry analysts. It's a single platform for hybrid IT coverage across all of the different technologies that we've discussed today, with automated triage for fault analysis and incident handling and ticket routing, a service-centric approach that helps you manage at the service level as opposed to purely at the device level, employing all sorts of ML under the covers to help the ops team to reduce mean time to repair and improve the overall service to customers and customer experience. Well, that's all we have time for today. I'm going to close out here, and looks like we'll move to some questions.
Thank you, Peter.
So, Rahul, are you going to cover the questions Q&A for us?
Yes, thanks, Peter. Thank you, Rakesh. We have a couple of them. So the first one is, how do I get visibility to real-time business service performance? Although it has been shared, but if you would want to reiterate once again.
Yes, how do I get visibility to real-time business service performance? I can cover that. The real-time nature of this is built into the ScienceLogic platform. What we're able to do is to model a service very quickly and easily. So what I would do is probably have a whiteboard session with the IT organization in concern, and we would discuss what are the IT elements that go into that particular business service. And so it may be that there's a series of servers, there's a DNS component, there may be an Active Directory component, there may be VMware machines, a whole variety of components that we need to be monitoring that make sure that that particular service is available and healthy. I build up those business rules after just building out the structure of the service. I build up some business rules, and typically that takes a week or so, a week or two to get that up and running and tested. So it's not like it's a 6-month project. The key thing here is to avoid boiling the ocean and just start small with a crawl, walk, run type of approach. And we've been quite successful in terms of working with service providers and enterprise organizations to build up those business service views. And it's a standard feature within the product, and it enables us to build these service maps quite readily. And you saw some of those on the display. It does work real time, and it provides alerting on service alerts on health, availability, and risk associated with the service. And that's also available within the YASH Intelligent Services Management offering. It's something that YASH can do for you as well. Rakesh,
thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
Rakesh, I think the second one's for you. I saw you sharing this thing on your screen, but they're asking about predicting service degrades and service outages using the ScienceLogic and the YASH IBSM platform. So if you want to take this.
Sure, and I think as I explained, so yes, it can practically manage the capacity because there is a capacity kind of a forecast which comes in terms of maybe these kind of issues comes typically when you talk about maybe the storage utilization and you need to understand. So it kind of over a period of time keeps it track of the utilization, how the growth on the storage side is happening. And basis that, it gives you a predictive model in terms of saying, hey, maybe your current storage capacity would be out maybe next 3 to 6 months or maybe 9 months, whatever the situation would be. So yes, it's very, very easy to kind of create that, and it gives you all those features and functionality. Now, the service degrades, as I explained. So the charts or the screen captures which I was sharing, it has those elements where it says, okay, that one particular service is degrading, and that's how somebody can just, while monitoring, and that's what it comes as part of the monitoring and management services from YASH, where our team, we get into the platform and see, using that 5 why approach, which I explained, that why this service degradation is done. Where is that problem? Whether it's related to the database, whether it's related to the network flipping or what it is, right? Even though everything is available, but still there are issues, right? And that's what enables you the visibility, and it becomes very easy to monitor and manage these areas effectively.
Thanks, Rakesh. That was pretty insightful, and I hope the question I got is answer here. Peter, I have a last question for you as we reach the end of the session. So there's a question from one of our audience which says, am I able to find out real issues easily with different monitoring tools for multiple environments, and how the solution might help him?
Okay, well, I would say good luck. If you have different tools for different environments, multiple different monitoring tools for different environments, you can lose a lot of visibility. And I'll give you an example. So if you have a virtual machine mounted to a particular storage element, for example, and a performance issue in between them could be associated with the network connection between them. And we've seen this actually in a number of customers where the VMware tool is focused on the performance of the virtual machines. The storage tool, separate storage tool, is looking at the storage array and storage conditions and sees nothing wrong. VMware sees nothing wrong. The problem is actually the network in between. And so I have siloed tools for VMware and for storage and perhaps for the network too. Those are all integrated within ScienceLogic. And so I can build a relationship map and show that there's a connection being lost between that storage and the associated virtual machine. And to provide that level of insight, you need everything in one place, we would advocate. And so we have that kind of integrated view with the dependency mapping. So I can see that there's a dependency between the VM and the storage that the storage tool would not find and the VMware tool would not find. So I think there are ways to show real issues and identify those issues much faster than you would if you had individual non-integrated tool sets. And we see that quite frequently. Those non-integrated tool sets can take a lot longer to troubleshoot, whereas that's something that we would find quite readily with a dependency map.
Thank you, Peter. And to the audience, I have just put up a chat for you. So if you have any more questions, please do send your questions to info@yash.com, and we will have either Rakesh or Peter answer them for you. And thank you for joining us, Peter, Rakesh. It has been a pleasure having you both on the webinar, and have a good day.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you to all the attendees who joined this session. Thank you so much.